All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another webinar series from Amsterdam Data Science. This is actually our first webinar of the year 2021, so very exciting. And we're starting off with a very exciting topic as well. This week we've partnered up with ACE and Gym Spaces to talk about everything related to startups. And to quickly introduce myself, I'm Anita and I am with Amsterdam Data Science. And Amsterdam Data Science is a network organization that seeks to promote and foster the data science and ecosystem and data science and EI ecosystem here in Amsterdam. We do this by connecting industry, academia, and societies. And some of the activities that we're involved in are activities such as webinars such as these, where we kind of aim to provide people with more knowledge and insight into the field of AI and data science. Today, we are joined by three speakers, and that is Daniela, Maxime, and Ruben. So Daniela is passionate about the startup ecosystem and has been a serial entrepreneur herself. She's currently working as a program manager at ACE, where she manages the ACE networks of mentors, investors, partners, and corporates, and supports startups to succeed. Maxime is a communications professional residing in Amsterdam, and in her current role as a marketing and communications manager at ACE, she's actively working on a diverse and inclusive startup community and increasing ACE's visibility within the Dutch academic startup ecosystem. So during their brief session today, Daniela will explain the importance of human, social, and financial capital in entrepreneurship, as well as the importance of the team and the motivations behind starting a company. And talking about what makes a startup great, and also guide us through the questions of why most startups or why do startups fail. For that, Maxime will explain the most common reasons for startup failure and how ACE is supporting startups to succeed. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to both Daniela and Maxime to start their presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita, for the introduction, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us to this first part of the webinar into what makes a great startup. So before we get into the topic, I would like to show you a bit of the agenda for today. So first, we'll have a brief introduction about me and my colleague, Maxime. Then we'll just jump straight away to the topic. So what makes a great startup? But also to answer this question, we would like to address actually who is an entrepreneur and what are the motivations behind becoming one, but also the types of capital that are needed to start basically your startup. And also the importance of a team. That would, of course, then guide us to the question. I mean, if you want to know what makes a great startup, you also need to understand what are the biggest reasons why startups actually fail. And then, of course, we will let you know, or my colleague Maxime will take over to also mention what we do at ACE to actually support startups to succeed. So as you already know, my name is Daniela Redondo. I'm originally from Colombia. I moved to the Netherlands to pursue my master in entrepreneurship, actually a joint degree from the UvA and the VU. And I'm currently working already for a year now with ACE as program manager. My responsibility is actually to support our startups throughout the incubation program, but also after. And I'm also in charge, as Anita mentioned before, to manage ACE networks. And today I'm joined with my colleague Maxime, which is the marketing communications manager. And Maxime, I'll let you elaborate a bit further on yourself.
Yeah, thank you for the brief introduction, and thanks Anita for the more elaborate introduction. So my name is Maxime Brinke. I'm indeed residing in Amsterdam. I'm the marketing and communications manager at ACE Incubator. I'm working for ACE as of a year almost, and my previous role was for the Next Women, where I used to be a community manager and actively supporting a community for female founders and investors. And that is one of my passions that I'm taking with me into ACE. So I'm really striving for an ecosystem in which there are equal opportunities for every founder. Yeah, so that's basically me, and looking forward to dive into the webinar.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Maxime. So now you'll see a question and you'll see a poll launch now. So what do you think, according to you, what makes a great startup? Is it the idea that someone has, or is it the founders and the team? Is it maybe the product or the service that they have developed, or is it maybe already the financial investment that they have received? Let me see what your thoughts are. And while you vote, let's just leave it open for a couple more seconds. And we can continue with the presentation. Interesting. So most of you actually think that the founders and the team makes up for a great startup. So we'll elaborate further on that along the presentation. For now, so actually, if you wish to become an entrepreneur, some people might think that there's specific criteria or skills that you need to have. Well, actually, the right approach is more like, given the profile that I have, what type of entrepreneurship shall I pursue? And with that in mind, let's, Maxime, if we can continue to the next slide. Once you have identified this type of entrepreneurship that you want to pursue, entrepreneurs tend to typically look for two types of benefits. One is about the money. So basically they see a need, they see a market opportunity, and then they just want to make some money out of it. But there can also be the benefit of autonomy, where there's not an existing company, but you want to have full control and to be your own boss. What in reality happens, and for you to keep in mind, it's at an early stage, well, these two benefits are not reachable just yet, because you'll be needing to invest a lot of money in order to actually get money back. But also in terms of autonomy, you might think you'll be, let's say, having full control and having no boss. But actually, you'll be having some shareholders or even your clients that you might need to be accountable to. So that's also something to keep in mind when you're starting. And now let's also dig deeper a bit into the motivations actually to become an entrepreneur, and going back to, let's say, that founder or team that could make a great startup. One of the motivations can be that you have a product and you're searching for a market. In this sense, it tends to happen a lot with scientists. So you have developed something in the lab or in your research, and then you want to commercialize this. Another one can be that you have a passion for just searching for the next opportunity out there. But it can also be that maybe you experience a problem yourself, and then you also saw that other people actually have this problem as well. So you have found a market that is actually searching for a product and for a solution, and you might be the right person to actually solve it. What we have found is that balance is key actually in these motivations. And of course, there are methods to help entrepreneurs achieve this. And that's also something that we do at ACE that Maxime will later on tell you a bit more about. And let's now dig a bit deeper on these capitals and resources that you might need, once again, in case you're wondering how to get to that great startup. So we have the human, the social, and the financial capital. The human capital would be, what do I know? And then again, going to the right way to think about entrepreneurship. If I have this human capital, what's the best entrepreneurship, let's say, path that I should pursue? Again, skills and capabilities. In terms of social capital, who do I know? Who are my networks and my contacts that I can also exploit? And of course, last but not least, the financial capital. So how much money do I have that I can invest, own cash, but also maybe from what we call bootstrapping or family, fools, and friends. And Maxime, if we can continue. So now I want to ask you, so what do you think is the type of capital that is most essential from the ones that we've previously seen? And then again, this is just for us to understand your opinion. There's no right or wrong answer. So is it the human capital? Is it the own capital that you have and your skills? Is it the social, more like your network, or is it the financial capital? Maybe we can continue on to the next slide. And then what we have, we found, okay, so 44% think about the human capital being the most important, but closely followed by social capital. So this is indeed what we also think. Actually, we summarize it as a team. The team actually plays a crucial role in early stage startups, and also the focus of this team and the quality of the team behind and their motivations, or the alignment of the motivation, it's really important. So one of the things is that the team and the founder should be problem focused. So you should really think about the problem you're trying to solve, and not much about always staying with the solution, because this can always change. And that would mean that pivoting would happen. So normally early stage startups need to pivot because the idea, of course, as I said, can change, but the team will always remain the same. So this is very important. And this is also something that the angel investors are always looking for. They're basically focusing on the skills and the team, and also their passion, their motivations behind starting such a company? And then also just another question to continue and to give the floor to my colleague Maxime. So why do you think startups fail? There's been research done on this, and now there's a poll, and you'll find a couple of options. And we're curious to hear from you. So what do you think they fail? Is it because there's no cash, there's no market need, or maybe the startup is outcompeted? Maxime, I give the word to you.
Yeah, thank you, Daniela. We'll give you a few seconds to answer the question before diving into the next slide. Of course, not all startups become unicorns, unfortunately. And 1 out of 10 startups only succeed. 2 out of 10 startups survive, basically. And then 7 out of 10 startups die, basically. So that's quite a shocking number. I see that the poll says that you voted for no market need as the main reason. And that's correct. So that's great. So the first and most important reason why startups fail is that there's no market need. And that's something that we've seen in what Daniela discussed briefly as well, that starting entrepreneurs don't assess the market enough. So that's the main reason, actually. The second reason is that startups ran out of cash too soon. So the first couple of months and perhaps even years, it is most likely that the founders are bootstrapping their company and investing their own time and money into their company. There we are. And at some point, they might need a cash injection or investment. And it could be that the startup runs out of cash before that happens. The third reason is that there's not the right team in place. And that's an aspect that we're really focusing on within our program as well, because we do think that that is the fundament of your company. And without a funding team that possesses all the skills that are needed to operate, but also to sell your company, basically, so to sell your product or solution. The fourth reason is the reason that the startup might get outcompeted by one of the competitors that you come across in the market that you're operating in. And the fifth reason is that there appear to be cost issues, so that the business model is not what you hoped for it to be. And one of the startup methods that we tend to use within our programs, and that we really recommend you to use as well if you're considering starting a startup, is the lean startup method, which focuses on the aspect that we just mentioned, that failure is an essential part of the startup process. And one of the key sentences in the lean startup method is the following. So the only way to win is to ... faster than anyone else. So I'd like to ask you to think about what verb this could be before diving into the next slide. The only way to win is to learn faster than anyone else. So that is, I would say, the most essential part of starting your own venture. To learn quick and to learn a lot, basically. So that is basically the fundament of the lean startup method. The lean startup method is basically built upon the mindset that scientists tend to use. So they tend to start with building a hypothesis, then test that hypothesis, and then analyze and pivot their hypothesis if needed. And the three principles basically of the lean startup mindset is that it's super important to test fast and test a lot. Test fast to not get outcompeted, and test a lot because it helps you determine an hypothesis basically that is correct. So for example, if you think about an hypothesis, you could test. That could be, who are my customers? How big is my market? How much are my future customers willing to pay? The second pillar is to be prepared to fail, which is an essential part, as I already discussed. The third one is fail fast and fail often. So these three pillars are most essential to the lean startup method. And if you'd like to read more about it, we will provide you with some links and resources for you to dive into the method a bit more. So at ACE Incubator, we aim to bridge the gap between academic knowledge and entrepreneurship. We're a part of the Amsterdam-based universities, so UvA, VU, HVA, and the Amsterdam Medical Centers, so Amsterdam UMC. And we do so by organizing a series of programs, which are all focused on getting students, researchers, and academics started or helping them to grow their tech or science-based company. There's a lovely video that we'd like to show you, but we unfortunately don't have time to show it to you right now, but you will get the slides afterwards. So the programs that we're organizing are our Explore programs, our incubation program that happens twice a year, and our ACE initiatives. So our ACE initiatives are basically projects that are happening under the umbrella of ACE, but are basically executed by teams of freelancers. So firstly, we have our AI Startup Lab, which is a lab in which students are matched to corporates that provide the students with an AI challenge. And ideally, these students that are teamed up will spin out into an actual company, which happened to Integral AI last year. So that's one of the success stories there. Then we have our PIM Noord-Holland initiative and our MKB Digital Workspace initiative. Both of these initiatives are focusing on SME companies in the Netherlands. The Explore programs are basically tailor-made programs for either faculties or institutes that we're working with. So that could be, for example, the humanities faculty within UvA. And the programs are happening either spread over 2 days or 3 days. And the programs are mostly initiated by ICSA, Innovation Exchange Amsterdam, and executed by ACE. So the upcoming programs that are still happening in the next quarter is our Explore program with CERN, which is happening in June. Applications are still open, if I'm correct. And the Entrepreneurship in Life Science and Health program is starting in May. And is open to PhDs within AMC or VUMC. And the programs are mostly tailored to give researchers and students the opportunity to dive into the endless possibilities that entrepreneurship has to offer, and to see whether entrepreneurship is a potential career they can pursue. And then our main programs, our incubation program, which happens in spring and in fall. So the applications for our upcoming program are still open until April 11. The program will start on May 3 and will take 10 weeks. And within those 10 weeks, we will help you validate your business and grow your business into a sustainable venture. For the program, we're always looking for early stage startup with a tech or science-based business idea, and preferably an academic affiliation. And so far, we've incubated over 160 startups, and their survival rate over 2 years is 72%, and that's a number that we're very proud of. So if you're interested in joining, we're organizing an info session soon as well. So if you click on the link that you can see on the screen, you will find out how to register for either the info session or the program itself. We have built quite a successful portfolio of startups over the last couple of years. We will hear from Ruben, founder of Gym Spaces, in a bit. And without any further ado, I would like to wrap our part up. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to our office email address, and of course, follow us on our social media channels. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Maxime and Daniela, for that very informative presentation. We already have one incoming question for the both of you. So Merzad would first like to say thank you for the session, Daniela, Maxime. What is your experience? What is, in your experience, the best approach to idea validation during the early stages of a startup? And can you elaborate a bit on pivoting? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. So I mean, I can start on this one. So what we have learned, let's say, within our startups and also what we are doing at ACE, it's actually, I mean, if COVID was not there, the normal way or the advice is actually go out of the building. But what we mean by that is actually just get in touch with your customers and get in touch with people that you think would benefit from the product. A recommendation we also give is to read the Mom Test book. So actually you'll learn a bit on how to ask, let's say, the right question in that sense, because normally if you ask someone like, would you buy this, or are you interested in this product? They don't like to make you feel bad maybe, and they would say, yes, I'll be happy to do it. But once they need to pay, they maybe just decide not to do so. So sometimes an advice on how to do this is to keep questions focused also on past behavior. So for example, if you want to develop something, let's say, related with the gym, and then it's not really about asking them like, if I put a gym close by to you, how many times a week would you go? And then everyone will be like, yeah, I would go 3 times, 4 times, because going to the gym is so important. But then if you actually ask them like, in the last month, how many times did you go? Or in the last month, how much money did you spend on, let's say, on sports or subscriptions to the gym? That'll be a completely different answer. So that's kind of like an interesting approach to take in kind of like how to ask the right questions. And then in terms of pivoting, so pivoting actually is just changing, let's say, any box from your business model canvas. So this could be a bit of a switch on your value proposition, but it can also be that you change your segment of customers, or that you change your revenue model. All of this is actually, can be pivoting. So in this sense, at an early stage startup, it could be the case that you find out that, I mean, there's no market needs for the market that you were addressing, for example, but it can also be that there's another market for that. So then in that case, you can pivot, and then you can serve that other market with your solution, for example.
Yeah, maybe to add a bit on that, I believe that Ruben has been pivoting within the program, so perhaps he can elaborate a bit on that as well, on his experience basically in his talk.
Thank you very much again, Daniela and Maxime. That was very, very informative. I'll now like to introduce the second speaker of the day, which is Ruben. So to give you a little bit of an introduction about him, so Ruben is the founder and CEO of Gym Spaces. He's a data science graduate that uses his tech knowledge to change the fitness industry. Throughout his entrepreneurial journey, he has learned the ins and outs of running a startup, and he's actively sharing his knowledge to inspire others. The startup journey is not what many believe. It consists of many late nights, uncertainty, and getting out of your comfort zone. Yet, it's a journey worth pursuing. And during his presentation, he'll tell you about what he's learned while going from a mere idea to a platform that is actively being used today. So I'd like to give the floor to you, Ruben.
Yeah, okay. Hi. So thank you, Anita, for the introduction. My name is Ruben, founder and CEO of Gym Space. CEO sounds very fancy, right? But in the beginning, it doesn't mean a lot. So don't worry about it. The startup or a startup always starts with an idea, something you want to change in the world, usually, or in your life. That's the same for everyone. But what happens after that is unique to everyone and every startup. And I just like to tell you a bit about my story. Gym Spaces started as a very simple idea. I needed a space to train some people in, and I couldn't find it. So I figured there must be more people that have, or more trainers that have the same problem. I set out the question and questioned some fellow personal trainers, and they all really liked the idea, right? They said, well, I need it. And it's funny that Maxime and Daniela already touched a bit about upon validation, and someone also asked a question about it, right? It turns out that validation like this is worth absolutely nothing. Having friends or family, right, answering, is this a good idea? They will all say it is. And I will touch upon that a bit later. So I set out to, I sent out a survey to question even more trainers, and even they liked it. So I felt amazing, right? I felt great. I was on this cloud. I thought I'm gonna make it, and this will be smooth sailing. The logical next step was to question some gyms, right? So I sent some emails, and I was zapped back into reality really quickly because most of them didn't respond to my email. And I believe that Gym Space had a great idea, right? And everyone would love it if they just heard about it. So it turns out that it's not so easy to get people actually engaging with you. And this is where the first hurdle came into existence. And I'd like to take some time to tell you about a couple of other hurdles that I have encountered. And there are many, but of course, I don't have so much time. So I just picked four at random. The first is getting clients. The second is building an MVP. The third is how to create a team. And the fourth is about perseverance. So the first is getting clients. I figured that getting clients is as easy as sending an email or following someone on Instagram, and they would just see the ID, love it, sign up through the website, and give me their money. It is not that simple. It takes a lot of time, right? You have to build trust with people. You have to properly tell them what you do, and that also needs to be properly communicated on your website. For me, that means starting conversations on LinkedIn, starting conversations on Instagram and Facebook, right? Calling people, manually entering their email with their allowance, of course, in the CMS, and then going from there. So it takes a lot of time, right? Just think about how will you find all the trainers. Fortunately for me, I recently wrote a small computer script that finds me trainers and gyms. I found, I think in total, 1,200 or so. So that greatly limited my time of searching. But I still need to reach out to them. So hopefully I can automate that as well. The second point is an MVP. And an MVP stands for minimum viable product. It is basically the most simple implementation of your ID. For gym spaces, the MVP, in my eyes, is a simple emailing list, right? I email every trainer in our network on a weekly basis with the new gyms that have signed up, the rates, the available times, and that would be it. However simple, it took me a year to find this out. For now, we have a bit more of an advanced MVP, and I think that most people will go with this option. We have a website, you log in, you can see all the gyms that participate and then book them. For your MVP, if you have an ID, right, just think about basic functionality like searching, filtering, previewing, and logging in, right? That are basic things that a lot of MVPs have in common. Then the team, and the team is an extremely tough one. It's true that you cannot do everything by yourself, right? But you can do a lot more than you think. I started Gymspace alone with one developer, and I wanted to go too fast, too quickly, right? I got two other friends on board, and I thought, you're gonna do sales, you're gonna do marketing, you're gonna oversee everything, and we are going to the moon. It is really not. It's really not that simple. Without a good plan and a good strategy, you don't know who to hire, and you yourself don't even know what to do. And also, starting something with friends and family is difficult because you can't just say, you don't perform, get out. It will ruin the relationship. So, if you work with friends or family, make sure that they meet two criteria. The first is that they have been through it, they have a track record. And the second is that they have the same dedication as you. And then the last is perseverance. Running a startup, right, going from even ID to MVP, it is extremely challenging, right? You have to work in your free time. You may work a year without any salary and just throwing money at your ID. You have a lot of late nights and strange hours, a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what to do. You will have an ID that you find perfect, and other people will tell you, I don't really like it, right? And you have all kinds of people that give you advice, go left, go right, go up, go down. It is a really very, very big challenge, but it's definitely worth the journey. And with that, I'd like to give you just 5 quick tips from my side to yours that I've learned over just over a year with gym spaces. The first one is to sleep well, and also work out regularly. It's very easy to say, I need to finish this task. I cannot work out. But if you don't do it, if you don't take care of your well-being, your performance will decrease. The second is to not neglect your personal relationships. People matter, we as humans are social animals. So take some time every week to meet up with people. Then three is do not take advice from people that haven't been where you are. Getting advice from someone you trust or someone you like is very easy. Hey, how should I do this? Hey, what would you do? But this person can literally not help you in the situation that you are in because they haven't been there. So try to take advice from someone that has. Then don't be afraid of making mistakes. And Maxime already touched upon this. Mistakes are the best source of learning. So learn quick and learn a lot. And then the last one is just take the step and just start a startup because it's really, really worth it, even though it's a lot of hard work. So with that, came to the end of my presentation.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Ruben. That was very informative and inspiring as well. Thank you very much for that. So we've come to the end of Ruben's presentation. If you have any questions for him, please make sure to use the Q&A functionality. So I'm going to start with the first couple of questions that have come in. So Kelvin would like to know, what are the early indicators of product market fit?
Kelvin, that's a really good question. The early indicators of product market fit, which first of all, product market fit means that there's an actual demand for your ID, is that you initially start with just getting a very few customers, right? And if you do not have product market fit, it will be very linear, right? So for everything you do, you will get a client. You reach out to 10 people and you get a client. What you have with product market fit is that the demand just skyrockets, right? It goes linearly and it keeps going, right? So you will get to a stage in which you have to say, I cannot do this anymore. It's just too much. That is when you can talk, generally speaking, about reaching product market fit.
All right, thank you. He would also like to know, how do you filter out false signals?
How do you filter out false signals? Can you be more specific on that?
All right, yeah, Kelvin, if you could perhaps be a little bit more specific on that, if you could write that down. And in the meantime, I'll move on to another question while you write that down, Kelvin. Merzad would also like to say, thank you for sharing your experience, Ruben. Many aspects are recognizable. Could you please elaborate a bit on the following in the early stages? So investors outreach, building your message towards investors, and how to know which investors are the right one for you. It's not always about one.
Yeah, good question. For me, investors are not as important at the moment. I'm a very proud bootstrapper, to be honest. Of course, we could have moved much quicker with investment. But as I said, I'm just very proud. What is important with investors, I have met a few, is that first of all, there's a personal click between you and this person because you will work together a lot. And also that he or she understands your vision and where you want to take the company, right? Because if you want to go to a place that is different than where the investor sees you going, then it will cause for some problems down the road.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Are there any other questions from anyone in the audience?
Was the second one from Kelvin, right? Or did
yes,
he not update?
But he hasn't elaborated yet. How do you filter out false signals?
Yeah, I mean, what is a false signal? Is it someone that likes your ID but actually doesn't, or someone that shows interest but isn't? Not sure what he means by it.
Perhaps, Kelvin, if you can hear this, maybe afterwards you can send us an email and send that, and we can send that directly to Ruben, and he can get in touch with you. Yes, are there any other questions from the audience before we close for today?
I had a quick question, actually. Yeah, is there advice on how to pivot most effectively? Because of course, you know, when you have an idea that you love and then you hear from other people they hate it, how do you not hold on to that idea? How do you pivot and how do you keep going?
That's a good question, right? So advice on the pivot. I think that every situation is unique, but there may be some similarities. First of all, don't fall in love with your idea, right? A lot of people think that they have a very good idea. Sometimes I even think it, but I know that it's not anything special, right? So don't fall in love with it. Second of all, regarding the pivot, we pivoted, as Maxime mentioned, and then we pivoted back. So we are building with gym spaces. What we actually do is we build an infrastructure that allows anyone to rent out anything, right, for specific duration at a specific price. And we aim at fitness spaces. But now that restaurants and offices are still closed and everyone is working from home, we figured we could use the infrastructure to rent out spaces in restaurants, for example, right, when it was still a possibility. So you couldn't consume anything in the restaurant, but it was allowed, you were allowed to work there, right, as a freelancer or a student group, you name it. So we figured we may as well pursue this direction. And even though it's very similar, the implementation of the platform, it is a completely different idea, completely different market. We didn't have knowledge of it, and we do have knowledge of the fitness industry. So after some time, I think it took maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we were really excited with renting out space in restaurants. We figured, let's just change back to the initial idea and just stick to it.
Okay, great. There are a couple more questions actually that have come in. Marwan would like to know, how would you go about extending your B2B customer network?
What I see in B2B is that LinkedIn is very important still. At the end of the day, we are all humans, right? Me as a company, your client as a company, they're all human. So connect on a human level, even if you are in a B2B market.
Thank you. And Thomas would like to know, you mentioned that it took you 1 year to get an MVP. How long ago was this, and how far are you now? The number of people working in the company, the number of customers, and did this fit your business case and your goals for profit?
Good question. Maybe I wasn't clear enough, but it didn't take me a year to build the MVP. It took me a year to find out that the actual MVP was a simple email list, right? We built a version 0 somewhere last year. It was super basic, super ugly, and I took it off. I was a bit ashamed, to be honest, to upload just a landing page. And now we are as good as ready. We just have to migrate from servers, right, with the new platform. It took me a couple, we are with the team, it took us a couple of months to build. So initially it was me and the developer, then the 2 friends, then one friend quit, and one friend didn't perform as expected. So unfortunately, we had to stop our collaboration. So at the moment, it's just me and then the developer.
All right, thank you for that. And I think this is probably going to be our last question of the day. So Martijn would like to know, how do you know that your passion is not just a strong interest? You need passion to keep going.
That's a really good question. I think that an interest is something that, the question is, how do interest and passion differ? I think that when you talk about passion, is something that gives you energy, and it's something that you don't mind doing for free. While an interest is, and you can work on it for a long time, right? Without getting paid for and making odd hours and working long. I think that an interest is something that you like, of course, and you could work on it, but you will not have the same desire to work on it as when it comes to passion.
All right. There's actually one more question, and this is a great question as well. And it's from Marwan, and they would like to know, how do you network during COVID times?
Yeah, so during COVID, gyms, of course, had to stay closed, right? Or close down and stay closed, or in the beginning, they could only train in small groups. So that caused for some problems, right? And you can make a connection based on the problem. Hey, I understand how you feel, right? You can only train 4 people at a time, or hey, your doors have to remain closed. So I just ask them what. So I first of all, I acknowledge their problems. I ask them how they deal with it. I just ask them, hey, how would you like to see this solved, right? And what can be done to solve it? And I just start a conversation on that way to build a connection. And I mean, people, if you're genuine, then yeah, I mean, I think the conversation will flow naturally. You shouldn't force, don't force the sale. Usually when I call someone for the first time, I just introduce myself, we talk a bit, and I asked if it's okay if I enter their email in my CMS.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much for answering all of those questions, Ruben. And thank you to our audience as well for asking those questions. Jeanne, if you could please share your screen again. So we've now come to the end of our webinar, and I just have a quick couple of announcements that I'd like to make before closing. So I have a couple of upcoming events. Next week, we've got a webinar on responsible and ethical use of AI, which will be on a Friday. And the week after that, we'll have a deep dive text analytics. And on the 8th of April, we have our Women in Data Science event for Amsterdam. And that is going to be on medical data science. Yes. All right. So I just want to say a big thank you to all of our speakers today. They were all very informative and very great presentations. I think we all learned a real great deal. So I want to say thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to have you here today. So yeah, thank you. That is the end of our webinar for today. I hope you all have a very great afternoon. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.